He is the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in South Carolina, challenging Senator Lindsey Graham. Welcome to what I hope is the softest interview you ever do in your fucking life, Jamie Harrison.
Thank you so much, John. It's great being on with you, man.
So, first of all, how is the campaign trail? Obviously, look, we're over Zoom. I see members of your team over Zoom. How has it been trying to kind of connect with people when we're still in this sort of unchecked pandemic?
It's been interesting. Campaigning in the South is an experience, as you know. It's going to the fish fries and the barbecues and, family reunions and the after church receptions and all. And so not being able to do all of that is just a little difficult. Now, I've lost a few LBs as a result, but nonetheless, it's different. I expected this thing to be such a all body experience, mentally, spiritually, and also with my stomach. But we're trying to turn our lemons into lemonade.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You can't do the kind of eating across the amount of consuming of foods at fairs. I mean, just is sort of, it's so unfair. I agree. It's sort of such a cool part of it, but yeah, you lose some weight. All right. So we met at an event in South Carolina, and a lot of people at the time said this was a fool's errand, that this was going to be an impossible climb. Now we see polls where it's neck and neck. You have a real chance here. You're really on the verge of being able to defeat Lindsey Graham. That's an incredible journey. But at the beginning, what was the reason you decided to jump in the race, even when there were a lot of people who said it wasn't going to work?
Well, John, you remember the event I attended with you all was the very first event in which I announced to the world
That's right.
that I was exploring running for the U.S. Senate. And you saw the pop that night. I mean, the audience just went, wow. Well, let me tell you, the energy has only grown from that point forward. And I knew from that moment on that folks in South Carolina were hungry for change. It's because Lindsey Graham cares more about being important in Washington, D.C., instead of doing the important things that are needed here in South Carolina. The coronavirus has hit South Carolina hard, but even before the coronavirus, people were suffering in the state. Hospitals were closing. Schools were crumbling. The fact that 38% of our rural communities had no access to broadband. Climate change is bearing down on our state. And so, in the course of this 2-year period, Lindsey still has not addressed those issues. And as a result, the hunger for change, the hunger for real representation has only grown. And that's why I knew then that we had a shot at this thing. And now everybody else is just catching up to what we always knew here in South Carolina.
So one of the issues I think that's been really important in the race is obviously healthcare. Lindsey Graham sponsored a bill called Graham-Cassidy. This was one of the many kind of efforts to repeal Obamacare, to replace Obamacare, to gut Obamacare, to gut Medicaid. Can you talk a little bit about the damage that the Graham-Cassidy bill would have done if Graham had successfully been able to make it a law?
That bill is so bad that I don't even know if you could call it a healthcare bill. I mean, the AARP condemned the bill because of the age tax that it included on our seniors. It didn't cover folks with pre-existing conditions. Do you know where he came up with this idea for Graham-Cassidy? It was in a barbershop with Rick Santorum. Not because he sat down with doctors and nurses and medical professionals or folks who were suffering from healthcare. It was an idea that came up because he was in a barbershop with Rick Santorum and they were trying to come up with some alternative to healthcare. It shows you that it's a joke, just like the efforts to gut the Affordable Care Act in the midst of a pandemic. And that's why these guys are dangerous. And we can't allow them to continue to serve states where we have such vulnerable populations like the ones that we have here in South Carolina.
I'm just thinking about how absolutely annoyed and frustrated I would be to realize I was in a barbershop and the two people next to me were Lindsey Graham and Rick Santorum. It would be just like, what a bad... I just really oh, this is going to be a miserable conversation. So, one of the reasons people called you an underdog from the start is South Carolina is a conservative state. You're running for a Senate seat once held by Strom Thurmond. What is the message that is helping you put the coalition together that you need, that draws the Democrats in the state, some independents, some Republicans? What is the message that you have found that resonates across those different groups?
Well, I'm running on values. I am running a values, and you don't normally hear that from folks on the Democratic side. You know, we get so focused on policy, but I'm running on values. I've told folks from the very start, this is not about Democrats versus Republicans or progressives versus conservatives. This is about what is right versus what is wrong. It is wrong when rural hospitals close. Because I can tell you, John, when you're in one of these communities that lost their hospital because Republicans refused to expand Medicaid, and instead of it taking you 10 minutes to get to the hospital because your grandfather had a heart attack or your wife is having complications with her pregnancy, instead of taking you 10 minutes, it's now taking you 40 minutes. That is a life versus death situation. And you don't care if it was a Democratic solution, a Republican solution, a solution from somebody from Mars. When it comes to the life of your loved one, you just want a solution. You want your hospital to be there. You want to make sure your schools aren't crumbling, that the roads don't have huge potholes in. And these things should not have to be partisan issues, but folks like Lindsey Graham have made them partisan. And the way that I'm talking about them is not talking about it in a policy, well, my bill is better than your bill. No, it's talking to their hearts, talking to their situations. And that's why our campaign is resonating with folks, with Democrats, with Republicans, and independents. We have even taken, John, some of Lindsey Graham's largest supporters that are now supporters of our campaign. The guy who was the chairman of Michelin, the largest company here in South Carolina, he was on Lindsey Graham's finance committee when he ran for president, is now one of my biggest supporters, Dick Wilkerson. And he said, you know, I don't support Lindsey Graham because of the man who he has become, but I support Jamie Harrison for the man who he is. And that was enough for me, and it's going to be enough for so many people across South Carolina. That's why we're sending Lindsey Graham home, man.
I bet if you had a recording of Lindsey Graham pleading with that guy not to abandon him, you'd win by 15 points.
Well,
I mean, that call must have been absolutely pathetic.
Well, you know, the other night, man, my mom called me up. My mom has become this political, and I think it was the Obama campaign in 2008 that turned her from somebody who didn't care about politics to now the biggest political pundit this side of D.C. And she said, Jamie, I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I'm disappointed in you. I thought I taught you better. I said, Mama, I'm thinking to myself, what did I do now? I said, Mama, what are you talking about? She said, why do you have Lindsey Graham on Fox News crying? It was all I could do was laugh, man. It was it's really sad to see this guy who's been a senator for 25 years, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, practically begging for folks to support his campaign.
So let's talk about how this is playing out nationally. You know, we at Crooked Media and Vote Save America, we were really proud to help raise, after this judicial vacancy, to raise money for your campaign. We all appreciated seeing Lindsey Graham on Sean Hannity, hat in hand, pleading with people to rescue him. At the national level right now, like, what is helpful to you? What is not helpful to you? Do you want the debate at the national level to be about the Affordable Care Act? When you see a debate like that, where the president acts like a heckler and really lowers and debases the office against Joe Biden, is that a conversation that's useful to you? Like, where do you think it is most helpful for the national debate to be as you're kind of in the closing days of this race?
Well, you know, John, I think the folks here in South Carolina see all of that as just noise, because we are knee deep in dealing with the coronavirus here in South Carolina. You know, 3,000 people have died because of coronavirus, including my grand aunt, Aunt Gladys, who passed away in July, and she passed away in a nursing home. And I can tell you, man, so many families right now are going through that right now here in South Carolina. Well over 100,000 people in the state that have gotten the coronavirus. 750,000 people have been unemployed because of it. A number of our stores and restaurants and shops have closed permanently. And so it's ravaging this state. And what we want is just a senator who's going to fight for us. It was our senator who said, over our dead bodies will we allow an extension of the unemployment benefit. John, the most that people can get on unemployment here in South Carolina is $320 a week. That's the most. Think about if you have a family of 2 or 3, and now you lost your job, and including losing your job, you have lost your health insurance as a result. And so you got to pay the COBRA now out of your own pocket. How do you do that with just $320 some odd a week when you still have to put food on the table, pay your rent, pay your car payment, and all of the other things, and educate your kids? How do you do that? But our senator is so out of touch because, he can go and get fancy dinners and go to wine and cheese parties and fly around on jets and all that other stuff. He's so out of touch with the pain that people are going through right now here in South Carolina that he can say something like, over our dead bodies will allow an extension of the unemployment benefits. And it's sad. And so I'm telling the folks, I'm going to fight for them. I'm not going to fight against them like Lindsey Graham. I'm going to fight for them.
You've graciously agreed to play a game. I want to ask one last question before we get to the game, which is, talk to me about barbecue for a second. South Carolina. What are we doing sauce wise? What do I need to know?
Well, it is a battle here in South Carolina between mustard-based barbecue and vinegar-based barbecue. Now, North Carolina is mostly vinegar country. They are vinegar, but South Carolina is a house divided. It's almost like Clemson versus Carolina, right? That is how we are on our barbecue. I grew up in Orangeburg, where mustard is king. It is tangy, but a little sweet, and it is the absolute best. Not that I don't like vinegar-based, but give me my mustard base any time of the day.
Okay. Well, at least I'm glad look, a lesser politician, might not choose a side, might try to have it both ways. I'm glad you while embracing both, you've chosen a favorite. I appreciate that. From South Carolina to defeat Lindsey Graham, and he's agreed to play a game with us. South Carolina. It's the Carolina without all the baggage that comes with Duke. But South Carolina is also home to a senator who has put politics and party and just grasping at power above all else, above being honest, above the people of his state, and that's Lindsey Graham. Now, we are not fans of Senator Lindsey Graham here in the Crooked Media cinematic universe, and that's because he makes it impossible to know where he stands, because he'll say just about anything he needs to say to get through the day. So we thought we'd highlight some of his wildly shifting positions and statements in a game we call I Can't Do a Southern Accent, but if I could, I would try one here by saying something like, I do declare Lindsey Graham is kind of a sniveling little dork who doesn't seem to have any real goal other than just being a senator, because being a politician is his whole identity and source of self-worth, which is not enough of a reason. Here's how it works. Jamie is going to read the questions. I will read 3 multiple choice answers. We have a listener in the waiting room ready to play the game. Can we bring in our first listener? Megan, so good to see you. You're here with Jamie Harrison. Here's how it works. Jamie is going to read a question. I'm going to read you multiple choice answers. All right. Okay. And your job will be to suss out the truth. Are you ready, Megan?
I am ready.
To the next senator from South Carolina, please take us away. Question 1.
Question number 1. During this campaign, Lindsey Graham has promised South Carolina that he will protect health care. However, when he wrote a healthcare bill in 2017, what did that bill do?
Is it A, change pre-existing condition rules to include diseases that cause someone to become sickeningly loyal to a president who mocks a dead war hero who was also your best friend? Is it B, created a public option so anyone who needed healthcare could purchase it at a low price from the government so long as they got the government-mandated tattoo of a red rose with a line through it? Or is it C, allowed insurers to charge sick people higher premiums than healthy people, allowed insurers to opt out of coverage of covering expensive prescription drugs, and allowed insurers to charge people more just for being older?
Can I do all the above?
We'll allow it, but it won't be correct. It's a Megan.
C is real. Megan, they're all real, but C is real, right?
You got it. You're crushing it.
Sorry about that.
We were actually just talking about the fact that is the Graham Cassidy bill. It was a bill that would have gutted healthcare, gutted Medicaid. Glad it didn't pass. Jamie, would you mind? We're up to question number 2.
In 2019, Lindsey Graham said we need to cut funding to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid because, quote, We're not in debt because we're defending the nation. We're in debt because we made promises we can't keep to Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. That's why we're in debt. Graham cares about lowering the debt so much, he did what 2 years earlier?
Is it A? Lindsey Graham donated all the money from his swear jar to pay down the debt, and it was a fair amount of change because every night before Graham goes to bed, he holds up a beautiful antique hand mirror and just screams bloody obscenities at himself until the Ambien kicks in. Is it B? Is it B? I can't look at I'm not looking at some of my frames as I say these things. Is it B? Lindsey Graham voted for the 2017 Republican corporate tax bill that added $1.9 trillion to the debt while lowering taxes on millionaires and billionaires and raising taxes for 53% of people. Or is it C? Remember when Lindsey Graham ran for president and Trump doxed him?
It's B.
It is. It's B. It's B. And finally, question 3.
Which of the following is a real flip-flop by Lindsey Graham since Donald Trump became president?
Is it A? In 2020, Graham called for a Judiciary Committee investigation into the baseless accusations against Joe Biden in Ukraine, while also saying in 2016, quote, Joe Biden is as good a man as God ever created. If you can't admire Joe Biden as a person, you need to do some self-evaluation. I will also point out that in that clip, he actually tears up. He feels it so strongly.
It
Pretty
seemed
remarkable.
genuine.
Is it B? It seems so genuine. Is it B? In a tweet last week, Lindsey Graham said, I will support President Trump in any effort to move forward regarding the recent vacancy created by the passing of Justice Ginsburg, while in 2016 saying, I want you to use my words against me. If there is a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say Lindsey Graham said, let the next president, whoever it may be, make the nomination. And you could use my words against me and you'd be absolutely right. Really seeing them side by side is intense. Or is it C? In 2015, he called Donald Trump a race-baiting, xenophobic bigot, a jackass, a kook, and said, I'd rather lose without Trump than win with him. Then in 2018, Lindsey Graham said, what President Trump has done is historic. He deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and then some.
This has to be all the above.
Megan, this time it is. It's all of the above. You've won the game.
Yay.
I'm very proud that to have been able to expose Lindsey Graham's many horrible misstatements and evasions.
Hypocrisy.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being a poll worker.
Thank you all for having me, and thank you, Jamie. This is amazing. I'm so excited to be working on your behalf.
Well, thank you, Megan. Thank you for your support and all your hard work.
Hey, John, will you tell Ronan I said I love him?
Of course. I will. Of course, I'll tell Ronan that you said you love him. He doesn't need more people telling him that, but I can tell him that. Jamie Harrison, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, John.
People listening at home, they want to help you. They want to do anything they can to help you win. They've donated. What is the most useful thing for people listening? We've got a big progressive audience. Some people in South Carolina, they're all across the country. What's the most useful thing they can do? Donating, beyond donating, what do you think? Well,
you can go to jamieharrison.com to sign up to volunteer. Phone banking, text banking, all of the above, all of that you can do right with our volunteer capacity. Just go to jamieharrison.com. And if you got relatives or friends who live in South Carolina that aren't registered to vote, we still have a few days for voter registration, but just make sure that your friends and family have a plan to go and vote. And if they can vote early, that's even better. So go to jamieharrison.com, sign up to help volunteer, or just make sure your friends and family vote.
Jamie Harrison, let's go close this thing. Let's get this done. Thank you so much for being
here.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the support.
Of course.